All right, dude. Let's kick this off. Introduce yourself to the people that might not know who you are, and talk about your accomplishments, what you do, and all that good stuff.
All right. Shoot, man. I've been lifting weights since 1999, which I was talking to some young competitor the other day at the gym, and she's like, I'm 19, and I'm like, oh, shoot. It's like, I'm like, she had just finished the first season. I'm like, I was telling her, you know what, there's probably been people in that stage that have been around as long as you, have been lifting as long as you.
Yeah.
And then I did the math, I'm like, shit, that's me. So we've been lifting weights for a minute, but it was always concurrent, like along with sports.
Yeah.
I would join sports teams just to get access to the weight room. I'd go throw the baseball, go do whatever you need me to do, coach. I just want to lift some weights.
I just want to go to the weight room.
But like the other sports, like nothing captivated like me. It captivated me the way lifting weights did.
Yeah.
I was far better at sprinting than bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like my cup of tea at the end of the day.
Right.
Then before I knew it, got in too deep on this, and it's like, okay. So now sports are over, full access to the gym. What can I do?
Yep.
Discovered Lay Norton.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just what captivated me was like the fact that people could be 20 weeks out. Now I'm shredded. I'm like, I want to have that sort of control.
Yep.
Took me a minute to get on stage. I didn't get on stage until 2007. I wanted to make sure like I looked like a grown ass man by the time I got up there.
Wow, you trained for a long time then.
Yeah. So I would bodybuilding specific training, and I did. Like everyone else, got wrecked my first season because I did a bunch of things wrong.
Can you elaborate on that real quick? Like people see you now and they see this like well-profiled bodybuilder. What did you do wrong that first round? Oh man. For instance, like my food, like I remember sharing my food with like the stray dogs at the, at the place I worked. Like, so I'm not very type A by nature, and that was something that I had to learn in order to thrive with this. Yeah.
The next year I hired Lane, and we went from like being, okay, that dude's got some potential. He gets shredded. I actually got shredded. It was very embarrassing to me to have that be a representation of like my work. So I'm like,
really?
All right, only time I've ever done back-to-back seasons, I'm like, I need to come back and like redeem myself.
Yep.
So I did, and I ended up basically cleaning up every show in California that year.
Yeah.
Got my WNBF pro card, which was like the goal from the beginning.
When did you get that?
That was the next year in 2008.
Oh wow! So you were right there, eh?
Yeah. So made it official in 2008. Got a few pro cards, but that's the one I wanted.
Yep.
Was the WNBF.
Totally.
And it was the Cap City show, which at the time, man, so many big names like had tried to do that show and like not gotten the card.
Right.
Had to go elsewhere. I'm like, if you get it there, you're legit. So I wanted that to be the goal.
That's sick.
We made it happen, and then the next year, I'd met up Eric at this point.
Okay.
We the next year he competed. We met Jeff Alberts. I had met Brad Loomis in 2008.
Okay.
And then we formed
the boys,
the original cluster. Yeah, that was 3D Muscle Journey. It was funny because the other guys didn't really understand how it worked at the time. It's like, we want to do this, like, we want to be a team of coaches because that was kind of novel at the time. Yeah. And like, all right, whatever. They just kind of played along with these young 20-somethings. And, just it was abstract at the time. But yeah, we wanted to just be everything. We wanted to be media. We wanted to put out information, and people wanted to hire us. We do that too. Cool. But that's how it started. And like, here we are, like almost a decade now. And insane, 3D Muscle Journey it's like it turned into something.
Yeah. You guys are like the upper echelon of like natural coaches for sure. Like everybody I talk to, they're like 3DNJ. I'm like, oh yeah. If you don't know them, you need to catch up.
Dude, there was a long time there where I was like, man, this is kind of a volatile career choice. Whereas like now I'm like, dude, you're in the fitness industry. Like that is just like this is your career now.
Yep.
So I found it through bodybuilding, which I think prior to that I was going to be a nurse. And then nursing, I was like, I don't care how much you get paid. I'm like, clean up poop. Like, that's how I saw it. That was my perspective. I'm sure, totally. Out there love their stuff. But then I went like the registered dietitian route, tried to do that. But like we were blowing up. So it was like this or that. I had to pick one. Yeah. And that Eminem song, you only get one chance to blow. Like, we're going all in with that thing.
Go all in.
But here we are, man. We're still competing. formed a team that I'd like to consider us leaders within the industry.
Yeah, totally.
And I still have a lot of time left, which is like my favorite part when it comes to natural bodybuilding. It's like the first 10 years are the warm-up years.
Yeah, exactly. Good. It's a long game. That's cool. Talk to me.
That's what we got.
Totally. Our audio got fuzzy again. I think your head. Oh, I lost you. I lost the audio, man.
What?
Oh, we're good. Don't move.
Okay.
We're good. Talk to me about how training has transitioned over the years. Obviously, you're 10 years in your lifting career competitively. So how has that transitioned over that time?
Man, see, it's so different from other sports because I don't feel like I've had to make too many like alterations to my training.
Yep.
Not a power sport, I think I was what was his name? Last name Gay, the sprinter, but he's born the same year I was, and I remember like he had a few spurts about 2 years ago. Tyson Gay.
Okay. Yep.
And I'm like, man, like he's so fortunate. Like he's kind of on the way up. It's kind of crazy that he's still succeeding.
Yeah.
And with like natural bodybuilding, it's like how much has changed. Like if I recover better than a decade ago, like to be honest, like things happen even more efficiently. I think namely because you kind of know what works.
Yeah. Totally.
Like for example, like the last contest prep I didn't track a thing really. I just kind of winged it a little bit.
That's insane to be at that level. That's so cool.
So no, it's I think just more awareness. I think if anything, the one thing that, and I wouldn't say has changed, but I'm starting to regain a little bit more is to learn to separate myself as a coach and as an athlete.
Okay.
I'm a very competitive person, and I think sometimes when you're running around as like the objective voice, you need to lose a little bit of that and put a little bit more emotion into your training and everything you do in order to find the ultimate success. So that's one thing I've been figuring out, and I think this year I finally got it. It's like, okay, it's like go, do the athlete thing, put that hat on, do the coaching thing, put this thing on. So that's really the only difference. But other than a few things hurt just from the wear and tear, you have knowledge now and you can work around them, and you know how it is. Like the more we learn about muscle growth, the more like you're like, shoot, there's so many ways to make it happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You don't have to be married to any one exercise or any one workout, right? Like you got so much flexibility with it. Yeah,
at some point, like my joints are like dust, and I have to work in the 20 to 30 rep range. It's like, you know what, you can do that, and it's not really going to make a difference other than it sucks a little bit. But but no, it's still my first love, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's cool. What about diet over that long term? Has anything changed? Like, did you start with the typical, tilapia and asparagus a couple times a day and then moved on from that?
Yeah, I'd say I had mild orthorexia at some point, but I didn't suffer from it. I enjoyed it, actually. It's probably the best way to put it. And then, obviously, as you go on, you discover what variables actually play a huge role in you, doing what you want to do with your body. And we focus on those now. But, yeah, we definitely, broed out initially. Yeah. Flexible dieting, my first time ever doing that was with Lane, was in 2008.
Okay.
And to me, it was magic. And I think it really solidified to me that, dude, you need to be a little bit more type A in order to find success in the sport. Because my numbers were a bit wrong. We didn't know that I was as much of a burner as I was on 175 grams of carbs on my low days.
Wow.
Which for me is ridiculously low.
Yeah.
But I think I realized that, okay, tracking this and this to a T makes it so that if you do get stuck, you switch a few things around and then you're unglued. So
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think, and now I'm back to kind of using the chill to my advantage. That's probably the biggest difference. That last prep, I hardly tracked. I kept my numbers on my fitness pal. I would look at the end of the day and I'm like, all right, you've had enough, buddy. And that was kind of how we prepped.
That's crazy.
But no, like everyone else, I've evolved, but every year we evolve less and less. But you should always be able to look back to maybe what you did last year and be like, that was wrong. That means you're improving.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. All right, man. Let's go into this whole general fat loss topic. I had a few questions that people had messaged me, and just some things that in talking with people that I was like, oh, if I can get Berto's opinion on that, that'd be kind of cool. So the big one, the first one that I want to talk about is the whole flexible dieting versus clean eating. That war that we'll probably ever wage on. What are your kind of general thoughts, general things you could tell people about the whole concept to maybe open some eyes a little bit and give people information?
Yeah. Man, here's my thing. It's like, I want to fucking win. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be doing something that I haven't gone through it once, gone through it 10 times, and in my head, being as rational and objective as I can.
Yep.
I think it works. I'd say that by default, when you are deep into a prep for satiety, and I think mostly satiety, like you kind of tend to end up gravitating more towards like whole foods, or foods that are a bit more, like whatever the numbers are is what the numbers are, right?
Yeah.
You can get a Hot Pocket and you can have an apple. Which one would you bet your money on that is closer? Like, even though there's probably some genetic differences between apples, which one is more closer to what you assume, like the macronutrients are for that item? So,
right.
So no, I feel that people who maybe aren't necessarily all the way sold at certain things, you got to get that emotion like out of your bodybuilding. Like that's the one thing that you have as a human being, like to be rational. That is your ultimate weapon.
Yeah.
And for you to, still be perhaps a little bit too focused on variables that really don't necessarily matter.
Right.
Not only does that lead me to suspect that maybe you don't understand how things work and but with your nutrition, but probably like when it comes to other things in your system and how you get and how you're making your decisions as you go on. So, no, flexible dieting, I feel at the end of the day, makes me more lethal especially when it comes time to contest prep. Case in point, my first diet, I recall it was kind of keto-ish, but the way the menu was set up is like my meal was supposed to be like pre-training, like green beans and like half a grapefruit or something like that. And I recall thinking to myself, man, I could have such a good training session if I could just have a little starch before I got in here.
Yep.
But it's not on this, and like now, like the way it works for me is like now that it's so flexible, it's like I can move things around based on like what my most like what are my needs like right now. So maybe I have a really tough leg day. I'm 2 pounds above stage weight. It's like, all right, we're going to have 150 grams of carbohydrate before we train. We're going to do an hour before, and then I'm going to pour some more in during the session if I need to.
Yep.
So at the end, like having the ability to move and adjust as you go, it's like you can make those play calls. Like that's if your system doesn't have that in there.
Yep.
Like you're selling yourself short, homie.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what would you say to the people that argue that if it fits your macros can get a little crazy when it comes to like nutrient quality and all that kind of stuff, like good food versus bad food. Like there's no way a Pop-Tart can be as good as a cup of rice, but the carbs are the same. Like what are your arguments for that stuff?
Okay. So let me tell you how the Pop-Tart started actually. It was my pre-400 meter race because for those of you who don't know that it's like you're sprinting a quarter mile basically.
Yeah.
And I remember I could not hold food down. I had to be very selective. In the Pop-Tart, well, you know how that thing is. It's like it sits super well.
Goes right down.
It's pretty dense, right? So like when I was prepping in 2008, that's kind of where people freaked out. Where I was like, so what do you have pre-training? I'm like, pre-leg day. It's always a Pop-Tart because I had two if I need it. Because it's like it's in there and there's no puke city and it gives me good energy.
Perfect.
So that's how the Pop-Tart started. But in regards to like nutrient quality, most people couldn't even tell you like they claim these things. Like, so what does vitamin K do, homie? It's like in the back of my mind, like I know how all these things work and there's like a time and place for them and they should be part of your diet. But it's kind of like the person that sees me say doing a low bar squat and they're like, that's not the best thing for your quads. And it's like, dude, you're focusing on this, bro. Like, let's look at the whole picture. I do some leg extensions. I hack squat. So yeah, you can take any little, like a section of anything, just like take it away, like, out of context. So yeah, most of the people like overly focus on like micronutrients.
Yeah,
and like every meal has to have that. It's like that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's certain cases where I think a Pop-Tart beats an apple for me, because I have 30 sets of legs coming up. I'm about to take it. I'm about to take it there, and it's swollen in my stomach. So yeah, every decision that you should make, especially when you're prepping, it should go back to, is this to make me better or not?
Right.
And sometimes, like, even like it's psychological things. It's like, okay, this one's more so because it makes me better up here, and that is super important, regardless of how stacked your willpower tank is and how hardcore you are. It's like, if you don't address and do things for it, just enjoyment and this thing up here, yeah, you're gonna sell yourself short.
Cool. Okay, talk to me about fat burners a little bit. Now, like, I feel like for a while fat burners were huge. Like when I was like, I'm 24, so when I was like in high school, like fat burners were all the rage, like hydroxycut and all that kind of stuff. So give me your thoughts on, generally, do they work? Is it a waste of money? Obviously, there's more effort that can be put elsewhere. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'd say probably the fat burner that worked the best, like, ever, that was kind of just available to the general public, was probably ephedra.
Ephedrine, yeah.
Yeah. The issue with ephedra was the fact that it works best when you're on a low carb diet,
right?
And people who weren't tracking their calories, because really at the end of the day, you're cracked out on caffeine all day, and it probably gives you like it's a 10% jump in your basal metabolic rate,
right?
So, but you have to dose it throughout the day, and the kicker is, like, it's probably best to be on a low carb diet with it, because it does make you insulin resistant. It transiently makes you insulin resistant, but that was the one that worked. 10% is what you got. That was it. It was 10%.
Just 10%.
So that one worked, man. So to me, like, a lot of these other fat loss supplements, they're useful in that they can help you maybe find a little pep in your step.
Yep.
Like throughout the day, like a lot of the adaptations that happen during fat loss diet. I was plateauing. Yeah, it's a loss of body weight, which leads to less, slow down your basal metabolic rate, and then also, and then even, like, I guess you could say pound for pound, we see a slight decrease there. So they can help you with NEAT, basically, so that hey, you've seen people's contests, like during a contest prep, how you've noticed how people's rooms, like, just get dirtier and dirtier, like,
lazy,
right? Right. So it can help out with NEAT. I think that's probably where they're beneficial.
Yeah.
In regards to them, like, burning fat directly, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
There are some products like ephedra where, hey, you get a 10%, but you get a 10%. And the reason that it works so well for the people who are not tracking is because it also suppresses your appetite. So right. So I think the biggest purpose there is just to kind of help you get through the day. If you're a college student who a lot of your activity comes from walking around campus, like, throughout the day, maybe some fat burners here and there can help you keep that up. However, coffee works just as well. And the backbone of every fat burner is basically caffeine. It's caffeine. Yeah. And there is a pretty robust, like, increase in basal metabolic rate with caffeine. It's a little bit more than we think if you're dosing it on the higher end of what is safe and recommended, I guess. So fat burners can help you, especially during those last few stages of a fat loss diet where you're starting to get a little slothy throughout the day. And then obviously the appetite suppressant stimulants do that. Yohimbine HCl, that's one that's pretty popular with I think especially people who are really digging to the point where those stubborn areas have to go. I've never seen it work quite as, like, you see what it does and how it works, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. I can see why it would help you mobilize, like, fat in your last to go areas. But I've never seen it make a difference with people, to be honest. Like, in practice, I've seen people do it with it and then without. And I don't know which one it is. Was it because we just dieted longer, or was it because we threw that supplement in there? I don't know. However, what I do know about this supplement is that, it's used induce panic attacks, like in research, right? Yeah.
Nice.
And the dosage that we use to get the effects from yohimbine ACL are very close to what you would do to get that effect. Like literally, I've taken that
scary,
before.
Man. That's scary shit.
Well, the best way to describe it is like you just feel while it's working in you, you feel like you're stuck in traffic and you got somewhere to
permanently
go. But you're not in traffic. You're sitting on your couch. So yeah, that's basically fat burners in a nutshell.
Okay. That's
crazy. They're not magic by any means, but there might be a time and a place for them. But they don't work exactly how people assume they might work.
Cool. Okay, now let's go into cardio a little bit. Now, kind of the two main ones are list and hit. Talk to me about time and place for that kind of stuff. Is there obviously there's pros and cons for both. So what do you use most? What do you apply to yourself? That kind of stuff.
I haven't given anyone hit because I thought it was the best thing to do in the last 8 years.
Yep.
Just because I don't know about our listeners, but when I'm going deep into a fat loss phase, I have a hard time maintaining my performance, and to throw in something else that causes fatigue, something that you're not even trying to get good at.
Exactly.
Just cardio. It makes no sense to me. So for the most part, I like people to find ways of doing cardio that interferes the least with their strength training.
Yep.
And my favorite one is walking, because most of us have done that for a very, very long time. There's really no skill component to that. And if anything, one thing that I missed from my contest prep walking is the fact that I was just less stiff, because I sometimes break it up into segments throughout the day and rack up my calories that way. I don't think I ever got my heart rate over 100 during my last contest.
Just
prep.
Nice casual walks. Perfect.
Yeah. So I think maybe if there was someone if I see if there is one profile that I'm like, all right, I maybe hit would work for them, because even when it comes to mobilizing stubborn fat, I've yet to see that happen. I've never seen it make a difference. Eric Helms is actually our biggest, because he's a poster boy for someone who's very lower body fat dominant. His legs are the last to get ready. And we've done it both ways, and we've done it Puke City with HIIT, we've done it just splits, and we ended up at the same exact place. But maybe if you don't lift weights, maybe some HIIT would be good, because you'd get some of the, I think especially nutrient partitioning effects from it. You might see some slight muscle growth, especially if you are someone who's completely sedentary. But if you lift weights, it's you lift weights, and whatever benefits you do get from HIIT in terms of, I think, namely nutrient partitioning and the whole EPOC thing, which is, we're finding out it's less and less, right?
Right.
Your weightlifting kind of takes care of you in that department.
Your weight's got you.
Yeah. So no, not a huge proponent of HIIT or even cardio, where the way you're doing it is you're actively trying to get better at cardio.
Yeah.
You're pushing. It's medium intensity. To me, that's you run the risk of, especially if you do have, if you are predisposed to being good at endurance work, the whole interference thing. Because the first month of anyone taking up something that's endurance based is where you will see the majority of those adaptations. So in a month of doing cardio a little bit harder than you should, you can possibly impact your training in a negative way.
That's interesting. That's interesting. What about timing during the day? Do you put any overthought into, some people are married to fasted cardio, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you'll ever break those people, but is there any rationale to placing it? For me, for example, I know if I do cardio before I train, bad idea, right? That just for me makes sense. You wouldn't want to pair those up. But is there any thoughts into fasted post workout before bed, kind of like you do, just sporadically when you can, walking throughout the day? Does it matter?
Yeah. See, you don't want a pre-workout, that's for sure. And I'd say that also, if you could avoid it post-training, that would probably not be a bad idea.
Right.
So if you can keep them like on
Separate.
different days or different times of the day, that's probably the best thing to do. I do fasted cardio, but it's more so because I get to check that off like early on in the day.
Yeah.
So like that's done, you know?
It's convenient.
Yeah, it's for out of convenience, but not necessarily because, you know, there's an extra like benefit to it. Yeah. So I'd say, honestly, just keep it away from your weight training. Find a way, kind of like with the hit and list thing. It's like find a way so that it impacts your training like the least.
Yeah.
And that should be, like, I guess, the main focus when you do start to add cardio to the point where the issue does start to become like, where do I place this? You know?
Yep. Especially in like the latter parts of prep, you don't want any interference with training as much as you can, right?
Oh yeah. Yes. The last parts of it's hard enough to lift weights. Like sometimes the warm ups are quite the adventure. So so make it easy on yourself.
Totally.
That's for sure. Yeah, I do like intervals though. Like it makes you feel like an athlete, kind of.
A little bit.
But you know, but yeah, it's just I'm so married to this bodybuilding thing. And it's like, all right, yes, that's not what we do now. You know?
That's right. Okay, what about men versus women when it comes to fat loss? Have you seen, like, obviously you've been coaching for a long time, you and all those 3DMJ folk. So have you seen much difference in fat loss when it comes to men versus women? Maybe location of fat loss, timing, difficulty, all that good stuff.
I can say that for sure. There's some constant things that show up. I think first, like we went over to the lower body fat dominance. You have someone who tends to hold most of their body fat in their lower half.
Yep.
Like it's gonna hurt, man. That's just, especially if you are doing this, not to like look good for the summer, but you want to really really push your levels of body fat down to like stage levels. It's gonna hurt. That's just how it is. So with women, you tend to see that a whole lot more. We don't see too many women running around with like those like thin limbs and like a gut. Like that's just something.
Yeah.
When I do get one of those, though, I'm like, yes, like this is going to be fun. You hate the way you store fat, but it's going to be so straightforward.
Yeah.
So you see a little bit more of that. I think also just psychologically speaking, typically, it's unfortunate this way, but I think most women at some point have been through some sort of fat loss diet, and usually, first fat loss diets aren't the most well structured, right? Like we don't really know what we're doing, and to me, that's probably the biggest thing is like someone's like dieting history, and usually women you're more likely to see a dieting history it's like, oh man, like we might still have some of that scarring.
Yo-yo dieting, so, up and down.
Yeah. I mean, most it's kind of surprising. Like if you ask most women, most women at some point went through a fat loss phase in high school, sometimes even middle school.
Totally.
So I think that part is super important. Is giving the athlete what they're ready to handle.
Yeah.
So just something that you're more likely to see with women. The other thing is there's a lot more things besides the psychological, but physiological that can go wrong. Amenorrhea, things like that. They are definitely way more adaptive, and a lot more water retention. So sometimes the water can look a little bit murky when it comes to that, and you have to go at a slower rate. That's another big one because of all the things they're predisposed to. And I'd say that usually, like, if we're talking about, hey, we want to lose, say, 9% of our body weight to get to where we want to get to, like usually you have to tack on like an extra third when it comes time-wise, relative to what you would use with a male who, again, wants to lose about 9% of their body weight. So there's many different things, but I think the number one thing is the psychological baggage that women tend to come with relative to men. Like most dudes that you get, they'll be kind of like, it's my first fat loss phase, and I've power bulked a bunch of times.
Been on the perma bulk.
So super important is like knowing what your athlete's dieting history is, and not for because of the physiological things, the way a lot of people believe it, more so because it's the mental stuff that often gets in the way.
Yeah, what's in their head. Now, for men, do you find it's, for the most part, pretty straightforward? It's just start chasing the goal kind of deal?
Yeah. A little bit more. But, nevertheless, most people who do get into this, it wasn't because, they were discovered. Someone pulled them off the street and with basketball, it's like, hey, you're 6'8", you're in 8th grade, let's get you on the court.
Yeah.
With this, is most people who get involved with this, it's because they didn't like the way they looked at some point.
Yeah.
And, right? So often there is some sort of history there. And you want to know exactly what this person's been exposed to before you structure anything for them. So physiologically, they're a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
You obviously, some men are lower body fat dominant, and that can slow things down a little bit. But yeah, I'd say you're more likely to run into some cases where exactly the way you put out the numbers and the output you expect, like it happens with men far more often.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Cool.
But dieting history is so important.
No, that's definitely something that I think people ignore, right? For sure, is looking, as you said previously, like you get someone who's, in their mid-20s and they struggled with their diet all the way through high school, right? Like that stuff you'd want to know.
Well, and here's like it's kind of a buzzword, what is it? The metabolic capacity, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, like it doesn't kind of, I mean, yeah, you will, like, if you eat enough, and especially if you overeat enough for not long enough period of time, you will see your metabolism adapt the other way.
Yeah.
But your body can only get so wasteful, and this is simply because what would be the benefit to, like, why would nature put that in there where it's like, you can charge up your metabolism to the point where, you can now lose fat on like 3,000. It does not work that way. Like, if you just think of things from that perspective, why would this make sense to a caveman?
Exactly.
You get a lot of answers. But I think a lot of people who feel that diet has messed them up metabolically, or past fat loss phases has messed them up metabolically. The biggest issue is not necessarily the metabolic capacity, but more so the fact that they just have a hard time adhering. So it's I don't know, we'll call it willpower capacity, but that's usually, like, a lot of these people are like, I'm on 900 calories and I'm not losing weight. I'm 140 pounds. It's like, you're not on 900 calories.
Yeah, unless you're on 1350. Don't lie.
yeah. When we average it out, with Saturday and Sunday, what happened? You're not eating that. So
Yep.
So yeah, dieting history. It's I think that's one thing that helps me a lot, is the fact that prior to this, I never made a whole lot of bad choices on that front.
Yep. Cool. Touch on quickly, maybe like macro partitioning between men and women. Is there much difference with that front at all?
The PCOS thing comes to mind right away. They might do slightly better on a lower carb diet, and the thing with PCOS is that you're a little bit more likely to run into women who have that problem.
What's PCOS for those who might not know?
Polycystic ovarian, forget, but basically cysts in your ovaries. Is what it is.
Yep.
But besides that, it causes a whole bunch of other issues. Physically, like, for one, you're insulin resistant.
Yeah.
You also tend to have slightly higher testosterone levels. So a lot of the people who a lot of the women who discover, like, hey, this weightlifting thing is kind of for me.
Yeah.
Often it is women with PCOS.
Okay.
Yeah, because they don't always get a great response, but they're a little bit more likely to get a good response from weightlifting than other women.
Right.
And with those women, I would say you should at least try out a lowerish carb type diet, and it might work pretty well for them. Also, just kind of keeping them just physically active in some way on most days is probably not a bad idea because of the insulin resistance that does come with that.
Right.
But outside of that, I'd say most people will do fairly well would say, we set their protein with their fat calories being somewhere between 15 to 35% of their diet. Like most people can find a sweet spot, can roam around there, and like you really wouldn't notice the difference.
Right.
Maybe as we get deeper into a fat loss phase, then you become less metabolically flexible is probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
You might end up at a place where you're like, all right, this is like my sweet spot.
Yeah.
But this is more so again when we're really trying to push fat loss, and there's just not enough of anything, and there's not enough fat, there's not enough carbs, protein.
Running on fumes.
Yeah. So yeah, I do feel that most people should set their fat calories like somewhere between 15 to 35%, and maybe as you go on, you might find that getting a little bit closer to this side or a little bit closer to that side might work for you. But yeah, something you got to try out.
Totally. Cool. And then protein, probably like somewhere around that gram per pound kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. What's become kind of fashionable has been the hey, let's run with 0.82. Because that's what the research is showing, right?
Yeah.
So 0.82, it's like, to me, it's like, why would you like skim that line so close? Like, to me, it's like, I'd rather not be caught with my pants down. Like,
yeah,
just up it to somewhere where it's like kind of in the middle of what's recommended. So
yeah,
I'd say if you're gaining anywhere between, per pound, you can do the 0.8. I wouldn't do it, but you can do it if you like.
Yeah, whatever.
So yeah, you can go that low, and it can be as high as honestly, in some cases, some people might do okay with 1.5 grams per pound, even when gaining.
Yeah. And
this is more so because behaviorally, satiety. It's just one thing protein will do for you.
Totally.
And if you're very hypercaloric, sometimes it's hard to keep it down and closer to like the 1 gram area.
Exactly.
So that would be like if you're in a if you're eating enough or eating in a surplus, if you're dieting, I would definitely recommend you keep it over 1 gram.
Yeah.
And maybe you can go as high as 1.5. But it's something that maybe you don't have to do until like you are super, super lean. So sometimes that's something that I will find myself in the later stages of a contest prep diet. I'll bring up someone's protein as an insurance policy. Yeah.
Now, when you bring protein up, are you adjusting calories elsewhere? Like, are you bringing carbs or fat down to equate for that, or?
It depends, because as you get deeper, sometimes I think your deficit that you're running should become smaller. So, right. If the 25 grams of protein I gave them made it so that what was now a 250 calorie deficit,
right?
It's now 150, but that might be appropriate now because we are that lean and we only want to mobilize so much at a time,
right?
So yeah, it depends, but sometimes I will. It's like, hey, let's borrow from these guys and bring it over to the protein.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, you touched on it a little bit earlier, but talk about when someone's losing fat and all of a sudden, their legs aren't coming down like their upper body is, or maybe vice versa, or like I know for me, speaking personally, the back of my body actually holds on a lot more than the front. From the front, I'll look like 6 weeks out. From the back, you're like, you got 12 weeks still. You know what I mean? Yeah. So talk about that a little bit, how you approach that and what you see most common maybe and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think everyone to a certain extent is kind of lower body fat dominant.
Yeah.
You'll see just random people that, don't lift weights or are body recomp enthusiasts. And it's like, hey, old dude, you have like, calves in your veins and little splits in your hamstrings, right?
Yeah.
But most of us have round butts at the end, right? Like that's usually how that goes. So the last bit of your fat is from the back. Usually most people are ready from the front and we're waiting on the back. There's a few men who do tend to hold, my friend Brian Miner actually, like it's like his abs, like for him to have like crispy abs, he needs to be like 3-4 pounds above stage weight.
It's crazy.
So yeah, the way you lose fat, it's just always going to kind of sort of be that way.
Yeah.
But the most ideal way is like you want to be that person that has that gut in the off season. Like that is a person that they're going to be coasting through most of their fat loss phase, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, the lower body fat dominance is something that I think the earlier you learn to identify that and how severe it is.
Yeah.
I think first of all you can have a better time giving, because as a coach you should play a role in giving your athlete goals that are appropriate.
Yeah.
So if you get a female that's like super like pear shaped, like abs, but like the lower body is like it's like that's like 80% of our fat. It's like down there. You definitely want to keep those people tighter, like closer to their stage weight.
Right.
I'd like to see people who are lower body fat dominant be about anywhere between 8 to 11% above their contest weight when I do start them up. Whereas like someone, like me, I pulled most of it like a male. I'm okay with, maybe starting a little bit higher and even allowing myself to get a little bit fatter during certain segments of the off season. But staying tight, especially if you're lower body fat dominant, is just going to be something you're going to have to learn to do.
Yeah. Now, do you have any tactics for someone who's got, fat that's, I don't know, say someone's hamstrings and glutes are just carrying all their fat? Like, is there any tactics for that, or is just keep digging?
That's the thing. It's just like add more time to your diet. Chris Elkins is prepping this year, and he's like the poster boy for that. Like,
he actually posted, I think last week or so. I think his upper body. You're like, whoa, and then like he commented, he's like, look at my legs, like they're nothing special right now.
Yeah, he can be 25 pounds. And again, he weighs 25 pounds is a huge chunk of his body weight because he competes like somewhere in the 140s, I believe.
Yeah.
He can be like full on bulk mode and be taking your male Fitspo pics and like they look great.
Yeah.
But come contest prep time, it's like keep going, keep going. Like and that's really what it comes down to. It's like you're going to have to really extend the length of your diet. I'd say again, like if you're lower body fat dominant, a third of what someone who is more neutral would require.
Right. Okay, what about how you've seen people kind of react to like the start of a prep to the end, like going through maybe like that first really serious like fat loss phase? How have you seen people like, and how have you gotten people through that have been really struggled? Like, oh my God, this is my body now. This is what it's become. Like people get kind of sketchy about that kind of stuff.
So their first time going through the crappy parts of a contest prep?
Yeah, maybe just that first, the first last 4 weeks kind of deal.
Yeah, man, it's crazy how much better you get at that.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I will have to make an executive decision with an athlete where it's like, you know what, I'm only going to get you this shredded because I want you to come back for more.
Yeah.
And some people might be slightly offended by hearing that, but it's no different than, a powerlifter. It's like, you know what, like, I'm afraid that you're going to hurt yourself if you go for that third attempt deadlift that we need to win today.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with bodybuilding. It's like I've been competing since 2007. I still have another decade. It's like you want to keep yourself in the game as long as possible because that's how you're going to get to those results that like at some point you would have never imagined you getting there.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes I never want my athletes to be that person, but if I can't get those last 1 or 2 pounds off them, they might not understand it right now, but it's kind of like your parents do things for you. And then like,
back when you were a rebellious teenager, you're like, you guys are stupid.
Yeah. It's like, no, I can handle this. I can make these decisions.
I'm
now.
an adult.
And I've seen a lot of people, their first contest prep, like it just knocks them out of the game. They never come back for more.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to happen. So, but let's just assume this person is, they're ready. We're going to go through that phase. And to be honest, even that person that is not ready to go through that phase, it sucks just as bad, right? Yeah. If not more for them.
Totally.
But one thing that I feel helps immensely is to just have other goals running concurrently alongside of your bodybuilding.
Right.
That will, drastically get it off that pedestal, and it's not going to stress you as much because hey, you're still trying to do this, you're still trying to do that.
Yep.
So having, while still being hyper focused, like still working on other segments, I think helps you get through that phase. We don't have to think about fat loss. It just kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
But that would be the first thing. It's just giving the athlete what they can handle, and then also keeping them hyper focused, but only as hyper focused as they need to be to get through that phase.
Awesome. Cool. All right, man. Last big one I got for you. What are your thoughts on, the rebound, the reverse diet coming out of now that fat loss phase? Best practices for people, for most anyways. What are your take on that?
Yeah. All sports do this, but us, or traditionally speaking.
Yep.
Where you just had a huge season, you're like, we're out. I'm going to go ahead and have a block that's solely focused on recovery.
Yeah.
It's I think people sometimes confuse competitive physique sports with like it being like health. It's like healthy and good for you. It's like no. It's like no sport is like that.
Yeah.
No sport is like that.
Right.
You kind of make a deal with the devil once you decide like I'm going to go past this.
Yeah.
And actually compete against others. So I think the recovery block post show super important. We have the recovery diet series on YouTube.
Yep.
It's becoming more popular, but I would like it to just be something that we don't think. It's just what you do. It's just
part of it.
Like basketball players ice their knees after a game.
Yeah.
Like that's their micro level of that. Like I just want it to be something that is standard.
Right.
Because the last 6 weeks of a contest prep are probably, you could say, the hardest part, but just behind that is probably the 6 weeks after a show.
Right.
But by doing this, we can make it, it's going to be hard anyways, but we can make it easier and we can make it so that you are ready to start progressing basically as fast as possible. And the way you do that is not by, all right, it's Sunday after the show. Let's get on this and avoid the fat loss, avoid the fat regain, start going super hard in the gym.
Yeah.
The block post show should be priority number 1, 2, and 3 should be like, let me get healthy again.
Yeah. Let's chill
so that I can get better. So, no, I am all for people gaining about 10% of their body weight, within a month's time post show.
Within a month. Right. So 10% of total body weight, not like total lost.
Of total, relative to your contest weight.
Oh, okay.
So,
gotcha.
So yeah, we'll say 8 to 12 just to give people some ranges.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like for me, that puts me at on stage at about 160, and that's about somewhere in the low 170s at least, like within a month, or month to 6 weeks.
Right.
And I think that's a great way to start letting your body get to work on the things that it's been meaning to get to for months now.
Yeah. Give yourself time to just get back to normal.
It's becoming more standard. And I think when it's all said and done, like we were kind of like the first ones were like, hold up, like,
wait a minute,
let's make this part. Yeah. So I'd like, I think when it becomes standard, I'd love to be like, hey, you know what? Like we kind of started that. So
awesome.
One thing that I am proud of us as a team is that one video, because I'm sure you know people who like post show. It's it's so freaking hard, and no one really understands it. And I think most coaches don't understand how that works. So what should be done, and hopefully that sheds some light when it comes to that.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, you answered all the fat loss questions that I had today for you. That was perfect.
Hey, no, hopefully it's winter, man. Oh, it's winter. It's going to be like the cold months are coming up. So so I hope people bookmark this thing so that when they do start their
come springtime next year.
Hey, but they should be bulking right now.
That's right.
Just in general, like as a rule of thumb, the majority of your time should be spent not in a fat loss phase. This is what's going to ultimately, over time, leave you with the body comp that you want. Is to spend the majority of your time gaining muscle and not losing fat.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, man. For those that may not know where to find you, plug your Instagram, plug your guys' website, your YouTube, all that kind of stuff right now. Yeah,
so 3dmusclejourney.com. That's where us as a team we do our thing. We have I think what I'm most excited about, and when it comes to the future of our company, is like the 3D Muscle Journey Vault.
The Vault, yes.
Online courses. We can't get to everyone, unfortunately. There's only 5 of us.
Yeah.
So this has been a very efficient way of dispensing information. So
cool. We're
just getting warmed up. It's going to be better. I'm going to actually start working on what is a bulking guide. So this is all about
sweet,
but
awesome.
There's no bulking guide out there. So
right.
We need one of them. 3D Muscle Journey. check out the vault while you're there. You can find me on Instagram. I'm quite active on Instagram. It's probably my favorite platform.
Yeah.
We do stories, we do lives, and I try to stay on top of communicating with my people, because hey, without you guys, I'd be a nurse.
Sweet. All right, man. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll have to hit this up again. Maybe talk about bulking next time.
Hey, I'm in. Absolutely. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Enjoy your day, man, and we'll talk soon.